So you just got the news that you have to move away from KOMA and start looking for a different martial arts studio. Hopefully I can provide some guidance to help you with this process. But before I get into that, I do want to personally thank you for choosing KOMA Martial Arts for your child. We're definitely going to miss you and miss having you part of the family. The first thing you definitely need to do is grab a copy of the checklist that I personally made to help new parents in their search of finding the right martial arts studio for their child. It's pretty in-depth and it goes through all the things that I recommend that you should definitely ask and look for during that search. The first most important thing that you want to pay attention to when you're either visiting the martial arts studio or checking out their website, Facebook page, or YouTube channel is their culture. That culture needs to revolve around humility and respect. Unfortunately, in the martial arts industry, arrogance, overconfidence, and disrespect is very common, especially with instructors or even owners who have a lot of experience, and they could say that they're 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, even more degree black belt. In my opinion, it doesn't matter what belt they are. What matters most is how are they treating you and your child. If you feel a little uneasy with how they're talking to you or how they are treating you, it's maybe time to move on and find a different studio. You also want to see those instructors who are going to be teaching your child leading by example. Specifically, are they showing the humility, the respect, being disciplined, all of those things that you want your child to become? Are they leading by example? Because if your child is around them all the time, most likely they're going to look up to them and they're going to try to mimic them. So you want to make sure that those instructors are leading by example. And one more thing about cultures, you want to make sure that they are focused on the big picture and more on character development, less on self-defense, fitness, and even competition. A little bit of competition is okay, but if they are overly focused on competition and attending tournaments, and that is not something that you are particularly interested in, then I would move on. The next thing to pay attention to is the teaching ability of the instructor or instructors who are going to be leading the classes. So I would first confirm with that martial arts studio if it's okay to watch a live class. If they say no, that's a red flag and you got to move on to the next one. But as you're watching the class, first pay attention to the instructor who's leading. Is that instructor smiling or laughing? This is very important because this is a clear sign if that instructor is passionate and enjoys their job. If they're not smiling or laughing and just serious all the time, I don't know if I'd want my child around that instructor because probably they're just collecting a paycheck and they're not really passionate about helping kids. We want that instructor who loves kids, who's very passionate about helping and teaching kids. And also try to find a time when a student is misbehaving. How does that instructor handle that situation? If they are getting angry or visibly just getting frustrated, or maybe they don't even know how to handle that situation with a child misbehaving, that's a red flag. We want trained instructors who know how to redirect behavior in a positive way and that is revolved around intrinsic motivation. And what this looks like is the instructor is going to be asking that misbehaving student a question. They're not going to be making them do push-ups. They're not going to have them sit out for a long time. They're going to have a conversation with that student first. The next item to pay attention to is the business operations of the studio. Are they requiring you to sign a long-term financial contract at enrollment? If that's the case, I would move on. Are they upfront and clear about their pricing, cancellation policy, upcoming fees in the future? If they are not, I would definitely move on. And lastly, if you just feel in your gut that something's off and you just don't feel right with the financial part of the agreement, I would move on. Is the facility clean and organized? Are the bathrooms cleaned on a regular basis? Do they smell pleasant? Are the mats cleaned on a regular basis? The way you can tell if they are cleaned on a regular basis is you look at them. If they're puzzle mats where they connect, you can look at the intersections. If there's grime and dirt in them, that means they're not cleaned. And ultimately, as soon as you walk in the studio, if there's a stench of dirty feet, usually that means that studio is not cleaned on a regular basis. Is there clutter all over the mats or the training floor? If so, to me, that's a big red flag, because if I'm trying to help a student become disciplined, structured, and organized, but then I'm not doing that myself, it's very difficult to tell that student to be disciplined, structured, and organized. Does that studio have a structured and organized curriculum for each belt? So then the student and you as a parent knows all of the expectations in order to get to the next belt. And the last thing you want to pay attention to is making sure that studio teaches Kukkiwan Taekwondo. If your child is a black belt and they earned a Kukkiwan certificate from us, ideally you find a martial arts studio that honors the Kukkiwan certificate. Now, if there is a conversion process, which means that some of the things that they might be teaching in their curriculum is different than what we taught your child, I respect that, and I don't think that's a big deal. We actually do the same, just because if we have a student coming from a different studio and joining our studio, we want to make sure that they don't feel lost in class when we ask them to do a technique, or just confirming that they know the forms or pumse the way we do or the way we teach. So that conversion process is something we do as well. But if you are told by the instructor or even the owner that they don't honor your child's black belt, I would move on. Because if that studio claims to be a Kukkiwan studio or affiliated to Kukkiwan in some way, then they kind of have to honor that certificate. Now again, the conversion process is very much expected, and I get it. But if they're just saying, oh, your child, I don't view them as a black belt, I'll let them wear it, but I just don't view it, that's arrogant. And I would move on as quickly as possible, and it's really disrespectful. You want to make sure that studio is teaching Taeguk forms or the Taeguk Pumse system. These were created by Kukkiwan, and that's really what makes a studio a Kukkiwan affiliated studio. This will also make it easier for your child to acclimate into that different studio if they're teaching the same forms that we taught your child. And you might notice that those Taeguk forms or Pumse are taught a little differently or a lot differently than what we taught your child. That's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. It really just comes down to the first 3 items that I talked about, which I'll do a little recap at the end of this video, but don't get too wrapped up in if they're teaching it perfectly or exactly like we did. But if you come across a studio that is teaching those Taeguk forms and abiding by the rules and guidelines set forth by the Kukkiwan, that's a big plus. What if you can't find a martial arts studio that checks all 4 boxes? Well, if it were me, I would just make sure the first 3 are checked. So the culture's right, they're teaching correctly, and the business operations is good enough. So I'm pretty picky with how a business operates. So don't base all of your opinion on my opinion, because I'm a little neurotic about the operations of a business. But if it's clean enough, organized enough, and they are honest with the financial matters of the business with you and how you get enrolled and all that, then that would be good enough for me. If the Taekwondo is a little different, or maybe they're teaching a different style, different forms, that's okay. Because if it's the right martial arts studio with the right heart, and they truly care for their students and the kids and helping them become the people they were created to be, become leaders, just better in life, that's good enough. Because if your child stops Taekwondo or martial arts in general and they become an adult, they're going to forget all their forms. What they won't forget are the valuable life lessons if It's a martial arts studio that knows what they're doing and is putting that student first. And if you come across a Taekwondo studio that you feel the owner has a good heart, the instructors are putting the students first, but the business needs a little help, maybe with operations, the curriculum, marketing, or whatever it may be, there might be an opportunity for a partnership where we can now bring a KOMA near you. And if you find yourself hitting a dead end in your search and just simply can't find that martial arts studio that is right for your child, please reach out to us. We can either help you with your search or look into keeping your child as a student with virtual lessons. I hope that helped. Please stay in touch. We're definitely going to miss you, and reach out if there's anything we can do to help. Best of luck.